You should be able to hear me. It's doing it again. All right. Disconnect, reconnect. All right. How's that this time? Sorry, TikTok was having an audio issue. How's it now, guys? How's it now? I just fixed it. There we go. TikTok seems to do that. I don't know why. I plug it in, doesn't work, unplug, replug. Crazy. Crazy. Anyway, hello, everybody. Welcome. Ukraine update. Um, okay amount of news. I wouldn't say it's an earth-shattering amount of news. Kind of some fun news, though. I mean, good news if you support the forces of light in the universe. So we will get into that. Afterwards, my voice is slightly better. Afterwards, I will, well, it depends. I think when I yell at trolls, it gets worse. I can feel it, though. It's being annoying. But afterwards, we will go to my Discord for a little bit of an after show discussion. So that's discord.aravosis.com. So please join us there. We are now a mighty crowd of around 440 people or so, which is nice. So let's go do that afterwards. Otherwise, about to start. Oh, and my store. Sorry, the store. I updated a lot of stuff in the store, actually. Thank you, Mike Webb. Oop, I didn't do my allergy pills. I can tell I'm already like wiping the nose. All right, we'll see how it goes. But my store, updated a lot of products in the store. It's aravosis.com. Go check it out. Make sure you scroll all the way to the bottom. More products because it's kind of a mix. But there are a number of things. And actually, somebody showed me a picture of their shirt that they got with the beautiful drawing the Ukrainian kid did that almost looked like an angel walking through fire. And it was gorgeous. I mean, she loved it. But like I looked at the picture and I swear to God, it looked like the kid's drawing. The shirt was the kid's drawing. Anyway, I'm very excited. I have mine hopefully waiting for me in Chicago tomorrow. All right, guys, let's get rolling. As always, I'm going to keep doing tea as we're talking because my throat's been goofy. So hopefully someday my throat will be back to normal. So there are reports that most of the Russian leadership has left the town, the military leadership has left the town of Kherson and headed south. Thank you, Inspired Woman, for that. This is really interesting news because it means they're getting scared. And actually, I've got a few other stories showing you about the Russians getting scared, which is good. I mean, it's good. Part of this is a psychological war, psychological warfare back and forth. You try to keep the morale up. And when people start getting scared, morale starts going south. So Kherson is this town over here, Kherson, exactly, Ellie. Perfect time for the confetti. The Russians occupy it now. The basic Russian line, it goes, this is the place where I always talk where the Russians have gone north of the river. So north of the river here, and then everywhere else is south of the river, all the way over here, the Russians occupy. But right when they get to the Kherson province, the oblast, they actually occupy a portion north of the river, including the town of Kherson. And the Ukrainians have been blowing up bridges along the river right here. And you may have heard before about the Ukrainians bombing the bridges. Well, they're bombing them because the Russians have troops north of the bridges, and including the entire town of Kherson that they occupy. If the bridges keep getting hit, the Russians are alone. They can't get reinforcements. They can't escape, right? They can't retreat back across the bridge. So the Ukrainians have made it pretty clear that they plan on going after Kherson first. And the Russian military leadership has finally said, you know what, we're getting the hell out of here. They are now 25 kilometers from the front there in Kherson, which is about 15 miles. So the Ukrainians are not that far away from them. But that's good news. Other good news in a similar vein, I'll show you this video really quick. There was a major traffic jam of Russians fleeing the Ukrainian town of Belgorod last night, actually tonight, I believe it was tonight, because the Ukrainians last night bombed an ammunition depot and an airfield, both near the Russian town of Belgorod, clearly freaking out the local residents. Belgorod, interestingly enough, actually, I'll show you on my big map and then I'll show you on a smaller map. Here's Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city. It's 10, 15 miles from the Russian border. This is all Russia. Belgorod is like 20 or 25 miles in, and that's it. I mean, I'll show you I can show you just for fun the map on my phone. It might give you maybe it'll give you a better sense. Let's see. Where's my phone map? My fake Irish accent. Well, I mean, you can see here, because what you can see if you look closely, you'll see the 10 mile or the mile kilometer marker at the bottom. So it gives you a sense of how close these cities are. Kharkiv, Ukraine, Belgorod, Russia. Okay, same for you guys. You see the mile marker at the bottom. So you can see these guys just both are very close to the border. Now, Belgorod is particularly important because it is a major supply port or town or whatever you want to call it for supplying the Russian troops in Ukraine. So hugely important, the supply lines coming out of Belgorod, and thus hugely important hitting the airport and hitting the ammunition. People are freaking. Well, I've got video. This is the traffic jam of people leaving Belgorod tonight, I believe, because they're so freaked out. I mean, I laugh because it's tragedy laughing, but about freaking time that these guys paid the price. But this would be a very long traffic jam of people trying to leave the town of Belgorod. You can see well enough there. Oh, well, such happens. Western intelligence says that half of Russia's Black Sea fleet combat aircraft, so the combat aircraft, Navy combat aircraft for the Black Sea, were destroyed last week when the Ukrainians attacked the Saki air base. This was the air base the Ukrainians attacked in Crimea about halfway down or so. It was around here on the coast. And the Ukrainians took it out. There was a lot of conjecture as to how they took it out. We're still not quite sure. But the Ukrainians said they destroyed up to 12 aircraft. And now the Western intelligence, at least, a Western intelligence officer apparently speaking to a Guardian defense journalist, he did a number of tweets about it today, said that their assessment was that it knocked out half of the combat aircraft for the Russian Navy in that area of the Black Sea. Now, keep in mind, this is also the same area where the Russians lost the Moskva, which was their big flagship. And the flagship mattered because the Moskva was hugely important for air support, for its anti-aircraft weapons and everything else to keep Russia in control of the air. So you've got that gone. You've got the Ukrainians hitting multiple air bases, taking out planes now that would normally take off. You've got the Ukrainians having taken back Snake Island, which was that island more or less, I haven't Googled Snake Island in a while, but more or less it's around here. It's more or less around here where my finger is. And you can imagine just being here that it gives you the potential to control, at least the airspace and the sea going around there. So the Ukrainians have done a bang-up job of stealing Russian control from this area. And it's got the Russians, a little upset. Also, just in that same vein, there was a lot of video last week showing Russians over the last week fleeing Crimea as well. And basically fleeing Crimea and going across the Kerch Bridge here, which Russia built once Russia stole Crimea and occupied it. They built a bridge going to Russia because Russia's right here. And Ukraine, the Russians were just backed up for miles trying to get their butts out of there. The same Western intelligence officer says that Russia is running out of ammunition in Ukraine, and it will impair Russia's ability to launch new offensives. Part of the evidence they're pointing to is that the Russians have had to dig in to some of their stockpiles of really old weapons. And these are really old ammunition. These are really old ammunition that really isn't up to par in the sense that it's not even clear that it works. From what I was reading today from some of the defense experts, they said that even for really good militaries like ours, that's very efficient, even for us, a certain portion of our weapons stockpile, of our ammunition, just isn't going to work. That's the way it works. Well, as this person put it, the Russians are not efficient. So they're going to have a much higher percentage that isn't going to work. Oop. Hang on, I'm going to take a little pill to see if it helps my voice. You never know. One moment. Hot tea for my voice. The voice is doing better, but I'm being careful with it. I've been having lots of weird voice issues the last month. There we go. So there you go. A Russian military repair base in Luhansk Oblast was reportedly destroyed by the Ukrainians. Luhansk Oblast is all the way out here. It's the Luhansk region, main town, Luhansk. The Russians control it at this point. 98% of it they control, so they pretty much control it. But the Ukrainians got in there, and according to the governor, around 100 pieces of military equipment and 50 personnel were located at the Russian base in Lotikove village when a presumable strike by the Ukrainian Air Force occurred, and it was destroyed. Russia's Gazprom is Russia's state energy company, the one that's been playing all the games with Europe by shutting off natural gas. Well, Gazprom, you got to love this. Gazprom has announced it's going to halt all gas supplies to Europe via the Nord Stream pipeline again. What a surprise! Who had that on their bingo card? According to the Russian gas giant Gazprom, the gas supplies will be suspended for 3 days starting August 31st due to repairs. If no technical issues are found, that's a big if, the company will resume gas supplies of up to 33 million cubic meters per day. Well, I looked into it. Guess how much 33 million cubic meters per day is? It's 20% of the pipeline's capacity. So the Russians are still only going to not even increase. They're going to shut it off for a few days to freak out Germany again. And then they're still going to return to only 20% capacity. This is Putin. And I always say this about Kim in North Korea, where he's kind of like, me, me, me. This is Putin going, me, me, me. Remember, I can screw you around on the gas, and he's going to keep screwing and screwing and screwing Germany in particular on the natural gas until he gets what he wants, which is Germany just to, cave, basically. Let's see if Germany caves, but this is Putin playing Germany. Absolutely. Greece and Cyprus behaving badly. Greece and Cyprus are opposing banning Russian tourists, which is a proposal that a number of the Baltic states have been pushing. 25% of tourists to Cyprus before the war were Russians. I've been to Cyprus, lovely place. Just cannot imagine it turning into Monaco, because Monaco is a cesspool, sadly. It's all Russians and it's tacky as hell. That's just really sad. Cyprus is a great place, but 25% Russians. Estonia, Finland, Latvia, and Lithuania have supported the idea of banning Russian visitors, Russian visas for tourists. And I want to say Denmark too. Didn't I have something about Denmark a night or two ago? I thought I did. So Denmark too, I think, which is interesting actually, that it's all basically the Baltic countries and the Baltic region who are the ones that are the strongest, although they usually are. I mean, certainly the Baltics themselves, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, have always historically been the strongest country standing up to the Russians. But it was Denmark. Yeah, okay, thank you. I thought so. Yep, so it was Denmark as well. Macron. You always have to kind of preface Macron talking to Putin with like, oh God, what did he do? So French President Macron held another phone call with Vladimir Putin. These calls don't tend to go very well, but let's see. Putin has allegedly agreed to send inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency. It's the UN agency that helps to oversee the safe running of nuclear plants, electrical plants. And Putin has allegedly agreed to send IAEA inspectors to the Zaporizhia nuclear plant, which is in Ukraine. And remember, Zaporizhia is the nuclear plant. I double checked where it is. It's actually, I've been saying it's down here. It's actually a little further up here on the bend here. Here's the town of Zaporizhia. It's around here. This whole area, short of the town of Zaporizhia, this whole area is occupied by the Russians. So they're occupying the nuclear plant. It's a Ukrainian plant. The Ukrainian workers are still there. They're working at gunpoint, pretty much as hostages to the Russians. The plant is the largest nuclear plant in Europe. It provides, I've seen 10% and I've seen 20% of Ukraine's energy. I've seen two different estimates, but it's still pretty big. And there is not just concern about Russian shelling of the plant. There is also concern because the Russians are, at least the Ukrainians claim, but there's no reason to disbelieve them. The Russians are planning to move disconnect the plant from the Ukrainian electrical grid and connect it to the Russian electrical grid, basically stealing the plant, stealing its energy, to the point where this is not just a rumor. Even the UN Secretary General weighed in and said, Russia, don't do this. This would be such a violation of law, blah, blah, blah. So the concern is serious and legitimate about what's going on here. Well, in any case, so Putin is telling Macron that he's happy to send inspectors. I think it'll be a cold day in hell. Putin also said that the Red Cross or somebody, he was going to let go and visit the prison that he blew up with all the Ukrainian POWs in it. Remember that happened like 3-4 weeks ago. The Russians just blew up a prison, murdering all the Ukrainian prisoners of war, and then said immediately, "Oh, we'll let the Red Cross come visit." And then they never let the Red Cross come visit. This is what Russia does. They lie. I mean, they just lie. So telling Macron that, sure he'll let them go. Let me see what else we got here. Just because I told you most of what was going on with the nuclear plant. A little bit more from Canada on the reactor. I'll give you a little more from Canadian intelligence. Hang on. This is written small, so I need my granny glasses for this. This is from the Canadian Forces Intelligence Command. It says Russia has stationed military equipment inside the perimeter of the nuclear facility, including in close proximity to reactor buildings and other key infrastructure. Ukrainian technicians continue to operate the nuclear plant under the direct oversight of armed Russian military personnel, which raises the risk of human error caused by stress or interference with normal patterns of work. And there would be no elevated threat to the safe functioning of the nuclear plant if not for Russia's illegal invasion and occupation of the area. So that plant, I mean, the other thing going on with the plant is Russia had put out statement yesterday accusing the West, like we're going to do this, accusing the West and Ukraine of conspiring conspiring to blow up the nuclear plant in like a terrorist act. And supposedly we were going to do it today. That was the plan. That was the plan we all had, apparently, all of us secretly on TikTok planning these things. And it had a lot of people worried that it basically sounded like it's what Putin was planning. Because when Russia says things like that, when Russia warns of things like that, oh, the other guys are going to blow up nukes, blah, blah, it means Russia's planning on doing it. Now, yes, there's no easier way to blow up a plant. That is true. Janice is saying the concern they've got. I mean, what Janice's point is, which is true, these plants are built so that the nuclear reactor is housed in such a strong, casing of concrete that supposedly a civilian jetliner could crash into a nuclear plant and it would survive, right? The concern is that what if explosions, whatever, impair the electrical system that is being used to keep the plant going, to keep it cooled, to keep the plant cooled. What do you do then, right? So what happens if the generators get hit, right? What happens if the electrical just gets bombed and now there's no power to the plant? And then the backup generators also get bombed. So that's a concern because then you get a nuclear meltdown. And actually, this goes back to the issue of why there's concern as well about the Russians stealing the plant's energy. Because if the Russians steal the plant's energy, they have to disconnect it from the Ukrainian network. The plant will then be put on, I'd read, a series of 20 or so diesel generators to keep the plant operating. And in other words, to keep the electrical generators producing energy so the cooling waters can keep going and cooling the reactor core. So there's not a meltdown. And the concern is if the Russians go and try to move this plant from connecting to the Ukraine grid to the Russian grid with an... Oh, hello, Siri, don't go talking to me. That was kind of scaring the hell out of me. It's like out of the blue, she starts talking behind me. You're like, what? But if the Russians move it over, there's a period of time in the middle where it's not connected to the Ukrainian, it's not connected to the Russian power grid, and the plant is simply going to be connected to like 20 diesel generators. And if anything happens to those generators, the power's out and you're going to have a nuclear meltdown. And this understandably has a lot of people pretty freaked out. Final point I'm going to make on it is this is Russia's goal with this plant. Russia wants people to be freaked out. He wants Europe to be worried about a nuclear meltdown because he wants the situation to be for Europe to sit there and go, oh, we're not getting our natural gas. Now we're worried about a nuclear meltdown on our, near our borders. This just isn't worth it. We've got to put pressure on Ukraine to stop. We've got to stop giving Ukraine weapons. It's that psychological warfare aspect that, Putin's pretty good at. I mean, he's ex-KGB, and the guy knows what he's doing when it comes to psyching out the enemy. Oh, God. Sorry, guys. I think the tea's helping, but kind of in a gross way. So excuse me. The tea's helping clear things, but kind of gross. Ah. All right, we'll move on from that. So the new U.S. aid package was delineated today. There's a new $775 million, million with an M, U.S. aid package to Ukraine. It includes ammunition for the HIMARS, 16 howitzers, 36,000 artillery rounds, 15 Scan Eagle drones. I'm giving you these details because some of you are military geeks and you'll appreciate the details. 40 armored vehicles equipped with giant rollers to clear minefields ahead of any Ukrainian ground operation. That's going to be important. I was reading a lot today. That the Russians continue to plant a lot of mines, a lot of them, so that the Ukrainians need things to basically clear the mines if they're going to be able to move their troops in to take back the land, as well as 50 armored troop carrying Humvees, 1,500 TOW tow-guided missiles, 1,000 Javelin anti-tank missiles, and additional HARM missiles to seek and destroy Russian radar. This bothered me, though. Listen to this, and this was from a New York Times or a Washington Post story, because I was reading both. I think Washington Post. I was reading both of them. Thank you, Kay, before I came on with you guys. And listen to this. When pressed by reporters, a senior Pentagon official said that the Ukrainians lacked sufficient troops and combat power to drive the Russians from their defensive positions. And I'm reading this and I'm going, okay, we may not be able to help the Ukrainians with troops, but we can help the Ukrainians with combat power. So what we're saying is we're not giving the Ukrainians enough combat power for them to actually be able to push the Russians out. Why not? I mean, the next obvious question is, okay, why don't they have that? If only there was some country on earth that were providing the majority of the weapons to Ukraine and, could give Ukraine the combat power it needs to drive the Russians from their defensive positions. If only there was some country that we could name who's providing Ukraine weapons and could perhaps provide them the combat power they need. This is the BS I've been telling you about. This is the U.S. is giving Ukraine just enough to give Russia heartburn. Exactly. I'll keep my excitement down to protect my voice. To give Russia heartburn and to stop Russia from getting more of Ukrainian territory. I think the goal here by the U.S., Biden's goal here, is stop Russia from getting any more of Ukraine's territory. Give Ukraine enough weapons to cause a lot of damage to Russian troops so that the Russian military keeps getting degraded and degraded and degraded, but not enough to be able to actually push the Russians back and get their land back. Because Biden has got some, I'm telling you, I'm very good at reading these things after 30 plus years working in national politics in Washington, D.C. Biden thinks that part of what will push Putin too far is actually getting pushed out of the land Putin's already in. That if the Ukrainians actually push him out, it'll be too embarrassing, too humiliating, and Putin will then use chemical weapons or biological weapons or nuclear weapons. To me, that's what's going on, because this quote on its face. I mean, if our own government officials are saying, "Oh yeah, he doesn't have what he needs to get the Russians out of the occupied lands," then the next question is, okay, well, why aren't we providing them? Now, the answer could be, I'll defend Biden on this. The answer could be there's no weapon on earth we could give him short of a nuclear bomb, right? And we're not doing that. Maybe. But the weapon should be, well, if he had those long-range HIMARS rockets that we refused to give him, could Zelensky push Russia out of some of these areas? Right? So anyway, what I think is going on is we are A, trying to stop Russia from getting any more of Ukrainian land. B, trying to stop Ukraine from pushing Russia back. C, trying to give Ukraine just enough to keep giving Russia a bloody nose and a bloody nose and a bloody nose, where Russia's then capabilities are slowly decreasing. Not decreasing enough that we can push them out, but slowly decreasing, okay? And the idea then, thank you, Christy, this is just my surmising. The idea then is that Putin finally, realizes and says, I'm never going to win this. We're not winning any more land. I'm simply losing troops. The Ukrainians keep degrading our military every day. I've got to settle for some agreement. That is what Biden is doing here, if you ask me. Now, mind you, it's not like the only other major NATO country, thank you, Flower Lady, who would be more hawkish is Great Britain. Not of the major countries, of the top countries. France and Germany, they're going to be more dovish than Biden, right? They're going to be more scared than Biden on this stuff. England will be stronger. And then when you get Baltic states and Scandinavia and Poland will be stronger as well. But when you get to the big states, I think that's what's going on. It just, whatever. Like I said, kind of ticks me off. Now, somebody had said something good that I was going to, hang on. Oh, the ATACMS. Somebody was talking about sending ATACMS, which are these surface-to-surface missiles. Not my expertise, but the irony is an intelligence analyst who I follow online said that basically there is a picture out there of ATACMS missiles standing next to a HIMARS in Ukraine. And this is, the Ukrainians need to be really careful with this, because he took their photo and he determined exactly where this was located. He was able to find power lines nearby, the exact same power lines. Really, I will say this too. This is one of those things where they talk to you about, be very careful, not you if you're not fighting, but be very careful about what pictures you take of weapons, of troops. This guy was able to pull it out. He knows, and what he determined was the Ukrainians have ATACMS and they're using them in their HIMARS. Now, it would require one of you defense people to really explain this for us, but I saw one of you saying we need to send them ATACMS. This at least is suggesting they've got some, and it's working with their HIMARS. That's all I can tell you. What else we got? A couple more stories here, and then we'll wrap up. It's not like I said, it's not a super huge news day, but there's a lot of good and interesting news, I think. Oh, sorry. I had two questions here. I apologize for that. Joseph, you and somebody else. Joseph first. Sorry about that. Ex-British Army expert on nuke weapon is concerned. Oh, God, Joseph. Now I'm forgetting what part you were weighing in on. On nuke weapon is concerned. Oh, are you saying, was this about the power plant or what? Sorry. If you want to jump in again, Joseph, and just tell me which part you were referring to. Please. You don't have to pay for it, of course. But which part were you talking about? Put my glasses on for Joseph to weigh in. And then the ATACMS stuff we can talk about in a minute. I'm saving your guys' ATACMS comments. Oh, the power plant. Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, again, they're talking about a nuclear meltdown, Sky Queen. This is both about the plant. Would a nuclear disaster from that plant, from the Zaporizhzhia plant, cause problems for Russia with radiation? It could. The wind would pick it up, right? Yes. I may not know a lot about radiation to understand, but I figured it would be bad for all. Here's the thing. If there were an explosion at the plant or something, I mean, the problem is even if there were an explosion, I mean, the main plant is protected by the concrete. So it's unlikely an explosion is going to actually damage that. Not the most likely, but the thing we all worry about is a nuclear meltdown. And a nuclear meltdown, from what I know, right, there's sort of varying levels of meltdown because it could be the plant itself is contaminated. Does it get into the ground? The ground's contaminated. Then you get the issue of, does it cause an explosion? And if the explosion blows the top off, now you've got contamination in the air. And then you get something like the Chernobyl problem, right? Chernobyl, as I recall, blew radiation all across Europe. Am I right? I mean, that's what I remember. We're talking Chernobyl was 1986, I believe. There was radiation going all the way across Europe. So, yeah, I mean, Fender's saying all you have to do is look up the weather patterns for the area to know exactly where it would go. So, presumably, if you're talking here, okay, and Russia's over here, and what distance? That's going to be 15 miles. Is that going to be 150 miles? I'm trying to see how far from the plant to the Russian border. 150 miles? What do you guys think? People who know the geography. Any Ukrainians on with me? What's the distance from Zaporizhzhia, the plant or the city, to Russia going east? Is it 150 miles maybe? Oh, interesting. Croatian Swedish saying the Chernobyl accident was first discovered in Sweden the day after. Wow. That's bad. So I'll go to the live and see what you guys are saying here. 250 plus, Ray. Real? Is it that far? Let me look. Hang on a sec. Let me just look here. I believe. Well, I always say I believe. I don't believe. I mean, I believe you, but I like to double check. Let me look here. All right. Zaporizhzhia. So Zaporizhzhia's here. There's the Russian border. Yeah. I think Raymond knows his geography. Hang on. Let's get the 50. Zaporizhzhia. 50. I'm seeing 125 miles. That's what I'm actually seeing here. From the plant. Hold on, let's see this real quick. I'll show you guys. So hang on, I'll save this. Let me show you. Just because it's interesting if we're talking about nuclear, to know what the actual distance is here. Oops. There it is, showing the bottom. 50. Let me see here. 50. Yeah, no, you're right. I think 150 to 200 miles. Here, I'll show you guys first. You can see the whatchamacallit at the bottom showing you the distance. Zaporizhia, the plant is actually around the bend, but it's maybe another 25 miles west, really. And then you go all the way to sort of east of Mariupol's the Russian border there. So yeah, you can see here. So the plant is actually the plant is here at the bend. So it's a little bit further west, probably 25 miles further west. And then if that's 50, yeah, no, you know what? You're right. I'd say 200 plus miles. You're right. Yeah, I'm going to go. You're right, Ray. You know your stuff. Yeah, I'm going to go with 200 or 200 plus miles. Yep. Yep. Now, others are saying actually it creates a radioactive steam bomb due to water cooling of traditional nuclear, loses water flow for cooling rods in use, and bad things can happen. That's what I mean. That's the explosion, right? It stops. Oh, I see what you mean. I'm sorry. You're right. It stops cooling. And is it less the rods blowing up than the water itself that the rods are heating, reaching a boiling point, and then the pressure builds, and that forces an explosion? Let me see here. See a couple more things what you guys were saying. Experts say the radiation will head west. I mean, probably, maybe, but and maybe that's it. Maybe Putin thinks it's going to head west anyway, and he doesn't care. Plant could be used as a sort of buffer zone. What do you mean by that, Joseph, though? I'm not sure what you meant by that. Yeah, 1,100 kilometers away in Sweden on a worker's shoes as he was scanned going to work. That's Chernobyl, you mean? Wow. It's a flash explosion from rapid expansion of steam. Exactly. But then is that water radioactive to start with? And is that the problem when the water causes an explosion? Or does the explosion break some of the fuel rods and that adds radioactivity to the steam? Or is the water itself radioactive water? I always hate when people say yes. Which of my statements are you agreeing with, people? Yes, what? Radioactive steam? Okay. And it's not necessarily radioactive steam because the fuel rods are breaking. It's just the water itself becomes radioactive. Oh, it's both. Okay, it could be both. Okay. So the water becomes radioactive, but also as it explodes, the fuel rods could break. And then you've got now more radiation going in the air. So it is contaminated with water. Okay. Wow. That's scary. Ah, man. That's scary. We had contaminated salads in the Alsace region in France. This is all Chernobyl. Wow. Wow. Okay. Yeah. 280 kilometers. Oh, that's actually a little less then. Okay. So 160, 170 miles maybe, but still that's close. That's same idea. Blowing it up would mean that all the Ukrainian soil would be contaminated and imply no more crops for next year, which the Russians would love. Well, yes, Crimea, although I'm not counting Crimea, Jessica. But I agree with you on that one. Yeah. We heard wind direction, generally east direction, talking about Russian false flag. Now, when you said a buffer zone, Joseph, I'm not sure what you meant. Okay. So I'm just looking here at more of the comment. Everyone's getting into this topic, which is good. The radioactive rods are being cooled in water. So water and steam radioactive. Okay. Voice is being a little better today. It's funny. It really is phlegm or whatever, because all of a sudden it comes out and then, it's better, but haha. All right, let me go on. There's only a couple other additional stories, and then we can talk about this more. Germany, okay, good story from Germany. Germany plans to send 255 volcano projectiles to Ukraine. 155 millimeter volcano projectiles are capable of hitting targets at a distance of up to 70 kilometers or 43 miles. The German government also said it would supply to Ukraine 5,000 man-portable anti-tank weapons. I'm going to guess those are man-pads. 100,000 first aid kits, 200 trucks, a Cobra counter battery radar system, and 20 rocket launchers on pickup trucks with 2,000 rockets. President Putin and China's leader Xi are going to meet at the G20 summit in November. Both are apparently attending, which I did not. Well, I guess we all sort of thought was happening, but we weren't 100% sure. Seems to be, oh, I see what you mean, Joseph. Yeah, I see what you mean. Joseph is saying, sorry, go back to the reactor. Joseph is saying basically using an explosion at the plant to cause a no man's zone that the Ukrainians won't want to go through because it's dangerous as hell. And the question is, I guess, whether that stops their advance or what it does. It depends where it depends where it goes. Okay. All right. Felix, I appreciate the sentiment, but just so you know, I don't know if you're American. We really don't use that word here in the States. So please don't do it. Even though the guy's a jerk and I blocked him, we don't use that word here. It's considered really offensive. Abroad, it's not. Here, it's about as bad as you can get. So no offense, but I'm going to delete it because it's really not, or you delete it. If you would delete the comment, I'd prefer it. It's just, we don't use that term here. I mean, nobody who's well-educated does. Okay, not sure what happened there with you and Tyson, but okay, we can find out later. Sorry about that. All right, well, let's not get into it right now for me, but I'd like to hear afterwards what happened. So those guys are going to the summit in Kharkiv. Oh, this was kind of cool. In Kharkiv, right, which is the second largest city in Ukraine, right here near the Russian border, about 15 miles from the border, they're building 25 bus stops that will also serve as bomb shelters, which is kind of cool. They are, let me show you, because they're also making them very artsy, which is kind of neat. I mean, and kind of sad at the same time that you've got to build, bus stops that are bomb shelters. But here's the picture. I mean, they did a good job making it kind of cool. See, there's like the civil defense thing showing you to get in there and hide. But they did lots of cool stuff. I don't know whether that's buildings from around the world because that looks like the Chrysler building, but sorry to show you guys. It's kind of, I mean, it kind of looks like pop-up art, I mean, it kind of looks like pop-up art, which is fascinating to me, which is neat. Now, just to tell you, it can fit 50 people inside. Now, I'm guessing, well, sure, this could fit 50. I mean, people are seated and the rest of them are standing. And obviously, if you're getting bombed, you don't mind if you're squeezing in pretty tightly. So this is the inside of it. You wouldn't think 50, but if you think people standing side by side because, you're getting bombed and you're trying to live, I could see it happening. But kind of, I mean, again, sad and interesting that they're building these bus stop bomb shelters. And again, to their credit, that seems very Ukrainian too, painting them so that each of them is a work of art, which is kind of cool. You have to like that. So what else? Oh, the final story I was going to tell you. This one kind of blew my mind. So the Washington Post did an investigation looking at the lead up to the war and why it is that the Russians sort of so screwed everything up, thinking that the Ukrainians were going to cave in 3 days and welcome them as liberators. And one of the parts of the story just stood out to me. Listen to this. So FSB officers who are spies, it's the spy agency. It's one of the follow-on agencies to the KGB. Okay, so think of it that way. So FSB officers were so confident they would seize the levers of power in Kyiv and that it was going to be within the first few days of the invasion that they spent the final days before the war arranging accommodations in the capital. Communications intercepts by Ukrainian security services show FSB officers asking colleagues for details about apartments and other locations they might use as safe houses, residences, or bases of operation in Ukraine, in Kyiv, I think. Days before Russian forces crossed into Ukraine, officials said FSB informants were told to vacate the capital, Kyiv, but leave behind keys to their residences for arriving Russian operatives. I mean, it's just, it's just, yeah. What can you say about these morons? I mean, it really, yeah. So proud and so sure that they started making accommodations like Airbnb. Like, oh my God, you got to love it. Oh. All right, let's jump into the Q&A. You guys on TikTok can submit questions on my profile. I've put in a request to TikTok for them to bring the Q&A box back. I have no idea if such a thing can ever happen. If it does, that'd be lovely. Otherwise, if you go to my profile, you'll see a little box that says Q&A. And if you're very lucky, it'll work, because it doesn't work for everybody. For you guys, to use the comments here on the bottom or the super chat stuff. Let me go here first. I mean, we've already had a number of comments that we've been talking about anyway here, but let me go and here and check with TikTok. All right. Okay, guys, seriously, stop it. Everybody on all sides, you're starting to piss me off on YouTube. Stop it. Okay? I don't know what's going on, but the gratuitous beating up thing, and Demon, that includes you. The gratuitous beating up thing is not helping. So please just stop it. Okay? I mean, all of you. It's just, you're distracting me, and you're also turning off some of the regulars, which I would appreciate people not wanting to be there with that kind of fighting going on. So please stop. Mike, same thing. Stop. All of you, stop. All right, guys. Let's get to the questions. Do you think China and America is about to be in a war? I've been asked that before. Don't think so. No, I don't think so. My take on that has been that I think the lesson China learned from the invasion of Ukraine is that the West is going to get together and put massive economic sanctions on the country who invades. In that case, it wouldn't be, we know who it would be. And B, massively support with militarily Taiwan if it got invaded. And we know that Taiwan is considered a bigger, Taiwan is considered, I don't even know what to call it, a bigger ally, a more important ally, more strategically important than Ukraine. So that if we're doing this to support Ukraine, imagine what we would do to support Taiwan. So I don't see that. If anything, even though there've been, lots of tensions with China, I feel like China would look at what's going on and say, our economy hasn't been doing too well lately. The last thing we need is massive sanctions and a war that it's not even clear we'd win, because NATO would be supplying Taiwan. So that's my take on it. I think China would look at it and go, some of the more conservative elements in China might be going, oh, let's do it. This is the perfect time. But I think others are going, oh, we need to get our economy going. We don't need this. If there was a nuclear explosion, how would it affect nearby cities? How would it help Russia by doing this? Well, I mean, it depends what you mean by a nuclear explosion. I mean, you could have an explosion from the nuclear plant, right? That the nuclear plant itself blows up in a meltdown. And that's going to do, it depends. Okay. It depends what happens, right? Because there's different kinds of meltdowns. Whether it melts down and causes the explosion, then you're really shooting stuff into the air. That stuff, as people already said, can travel really far. From Chernobyl in 1986, it got all the way north to Sweden. It crossed across Europe. So that stuff can go kind of far, which is not good. If you're talking an actual nuclear bomb, it depends how big the bomb is in terms of how far the damage is from the nuclear bomb. It can, and also I'm guessing you've got drifting as well. You've got drifting as well going on, but that I don't know. I mean, yes, I do know with nuclear weapons, you've got sort of the fallout and everything else, but in terms of how far away, right? Will it melt your ice cream? Exactly. I mean, how far, in other words, from where the blast is, how far away do people immediately die? How far away do people die within an hour? How far away do people die within a day? How far away do people die within several days? How far within a month? How far within 5 to 10 years? Cancer, pretty much you're talking, right? So all of that is getting larger and larger circles. You've also got the blast itself. How far away are people killed by the blast? How far away are people injured by the blast but not killed? And you've got, I guess, heat. You've got a lot of different factors. So, I mean, it really depends. It depends. But the problem is, thank you for that, Eli, the hat. The problem you get is Russia's just too close. It would be, it would be stupid of Russia to do this close to Russia, but Putin doesn't care because Putin would blame it on the Ukrainians. He'd say the Ukrainians did it, and he would try to use it to rally people at home that this was an attack on, an attack on the homeland by Ukraine, blah, 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 blah. So, it would be a very bad thing. Have you seen the new book? Oh, the new look of orc propaganda, interviews which paint Putler as innocent, misunderstood, and others who abused his trust. No, that's interesting. That's interesting. That sounds like they're trying to basically make excuses for Putin. That's very interesting. Huh. I did not know. That's really interesting. Rob Wall, do you think other countries will now look at Russia with a lower standard, but hurting how countries perceive their true status and what the Russians learned from this war? Getting a little confused by that sentence. With a lower standard, hurting their true status and what the Russians learned from this war. I mean, Russia's going to be perceived worse in many ways. One, their military capacity certainly took a big hit. People think the Russian military isn't nearly as good as we thought it was. Thank you, Lori, for the origami. That it isn't nearly as good as we thought it was. So that's going to be one big problem. It's going to be a problem for Russia when it comes to pushing its weight around in the world. It's also a huge problem for Russia when it comes to selling weapons. I mean, Russia is a big arms merchant. And if they can't sell weapons because people go, your weapons don't work that well. We saw them in Ukraine. We want the American weapons. We want the European weapons. We don't want the Russian ones. That's going to be a big problem for them. Now, you've also got the issue of, for younger people around the world, I think you're witnessing just how horrible, just how awful the Russians can be. And it certainly is educating a lot of younger generations what older generations like me already knew, who lived through Soviet times and got to see what the Russians did back then. So I think it's hurting Russia across the board potentially. I'm not sure if that's what you meant, but why would Russia explode the plant with their military equipment stored inside the plant? Oh, in order to claim that they didn't blow it up, right? If you want to blow up the nuclear plant, thank you for those, Drifter. If you want to blow up the nuclear plant because you want a disaster that's going to freak out Europe and hurt the Ukrainian military and everything else, you want to make it look like you didn't do it. Best way to make it look like you didn't do it, make sure you got a lot of your own troops inside. Putin doesn't care. Putin doesn't care. I mean, again, Putin is the guy that we believe blew up an entire apartment building in Moscow, 1999. I thought it was 2003, 1999, in order to help his ascendancy to power, claiming they were Chechen terrorists, and it was actually Putin who blew up the building, we believe, and just killed all these Muscovites, right? I would not put it past Putin to put a bunch of his own troops in the building and then blow it up and say exactly what you said. Well, clearly I didn't blow up the nuclear plant with my own troops inside. Who would do that? And all of us go, who would do that? You? but it still gives him some plausible deniability, right? So, what else? What do you got? What else? What else? What else? Just seeing what else. I don't know. Some Russian people don't. I mean, Mariana's saying Russia's not a bad country. Russian people do not agree with Putin's actions. The problem is a lot do. All of them don't, but a lot do. And that's a problem, I mean, I don't see it as being a total dictatorship where, I think Lukashenko in Belarus, from what I hear, that would be a country where you'd say, oh, what the dictator does, people can't stand him. Don't blame Belarusians for what Lukashenko does. Fair enough from what I've heard. But Russians, it's unfortunately, they're not exactly, oh, we hate our government, oh, we hate Vlad, No, there are uneducated, poor, manipulated, correct. But you've also got, you got people in power who it's to their benefit to support them. I mean, a lot of the guys who have made their money and everything else, I mean, any case, I hear you, but I'm a little less sympathetic to them than you are probably. but I hear your argument. It's not a bad argument. What else we got? Let me pull up the Q&A, more Q&A from you TikTokers here. We got a good hangout today. Thanks for coming, guys. I appreciate it. You've got a strong audience today there. Q&A. Oh, I can't click on a link. Somebody sent me an article from the Polska Times, but I can't click a link in here, so I don't know if it's accurate. Why do people keep asking about war with China? I don't know. It almost makes me wonder whether it's like some talking point that people are putting out there to make us discuss war with, like, I don't know. Maybe it's a Russian talking point, make us scared of war with China. So then again, if you're trying to scare Macron, Schultz, and even Biden, you want to keep saying, oh my God, we've got this war with Russia via Ukraine and now war with China. We can't afford two wars, blah, 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 blah. It makes me feel like it's a talking point almost to try to scare us, because it is a little weird, because I don't know anybody. I mean, nobody in the US is talking about war with China. It's just not even it's not a point of discussion. Like I follow a ton of military folks on Twitter, and military and foreign policy experts, nobody's talking about war with China. I mean, you could say, could we get into war with Russia eventually? And even that, most people aren't even talking about, the risk of war with Russia, even though that's a possibility. But China, it's just not really being discussed, So, I suspect that Putin is slowing down traffic on the Kerch Bridge with checkpoints and keeping civilians on the bridge so Ukraine can't attack it. Any thoughts? That is an excellent analysis. This is Croatian Swede. Excellent analysis. I think you were the one who mentioned that yesterday. I hadn't thought about that, because we had a report over the last several days, or maybe last week, once the Ukrainian, remember how the Russians, Crimea, okay? Crimea Peninsula in southern Ukraine. The Russians invaded and stole it in 2014. It's still Ukrainian, but the Russians claim it's Russian now. They've turned it into a big military fortress, lots of air bases, things like that. And the Russians like to come here and go to the beaches to sun themselves. Well, when the Ukrainians started attacking last week, the Russians freaked out, and there was a long line of Russians trying to get across the bridge here, because this is Ukraine, this is Russia right here across the Kerch Bridge. And the Russians, it seems, were stopping people and checking papers and doing all sorts of really obnoxious things to slow it down. And I was trying to figure out why. And Croatian Swede came up and said, what if they're trying to slow it down so that there is always a steady stream of civilians on that bridge so the Ukrainians don't target the bridge? And it's a brilliant, brilliant possibility. That I believe. That's a brilliant possibility. Because we do know that the Russians are getting more and more fearful about the security situation overall in Crimea, because Ukrainians have just keep blowing things up left and right. They would be concerned as well about the bridge. And we know they are, because the Russians put a ton of these reflectors on the bridge in order to, I guess, somehow confuse incoming rockets and things like that, that the reflectors would make it hard for them to, whatever, GPS in on the bridge, however they do it. And therefore, it all fits with the Russians being worried. And frankly, it's kind of brilliant. I mean, it's evil, but it's brilliant. Once again, using human hostages. The Russians who don't care when people, they don't care if citizens get targeted, and they don't care if their own citizens get targeted, you know? All right, guys, it's 7 o'clock. I am going to call it quits. As I said, I'm trying to keep this to 7 o'clock now, as I'm slowly getting my voice back. And tonight, I will say, although I'm not raising my voice, the voice has been behaving much better than usual tonight, which I'm glad. What I will do is we will go over to Discord, and I'll hang out there for a little bit, not too long, but we go, if you go to my Discord, it's discord.aravosis.com. If you go to the far left column, scroll all the way down when you're there, and there's the chats. What are they called? It's not video chats, voice channels. You'll see voice channels, and the very first voice channel is John's After Show. Go to John's After Show, and I will be waiting there. We usually get, well, I don't know, 50, 100 people easily. Come check it out. And at the same time, please do go check out my store, aravosis.com. I put up a lot of shirts. Oh, you're right, a recap. I'm sorry. I will do a quick recap. I apologize. Quick recap. And then go check out my store as well. I've got a lot of new merchandise. The merchandise so far is being split 50-50. Between me to help me do this work and our causes in Ukraine we're doing. So 50% of the money goes to Ukraine. So please help out if you can. Let me do the recap. So there is a report that much of the Russian military leadership has left the town of Kherson in fear of the coming Ukrainian counteroffensive. There's a major traffic jam of Russians fleeing Belgorod in Russia after the Ukrainians attacked it twice last night. Western intelligence says that half of Russian Black Sea Fleet's combat air power were knocked out in the Saki air base attack last week in Crimea. Western intelligence officer says Russia is running out of ammunition in Ukraine. Russian military repair base in Luhansk Oblast was destroyed by the Ukrainians. Russia's Gazprom is once again halting gas supplies to Europe, especially targeting Germany. They're going to do it for 3 days at the end of the month, and then repeat. They're only going to go back to 20% capacity after that. So they're still going to be playing games with Germany. Greece and Cyprus oppose banning Russian tourists. Macron's office from France says that Putin has agreed to send inspectors from the IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, to inspect the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. Ukraine warns that Russia is preparing to sever Ukraine from the reactor and steal its power, which could cause a meltdown. Canadian intelligence basically says that the Russians have in fact been stationing military equipment inside the perimeter of the reactor. There's a new U.S. aid package of $775 million going for ammunition for HIMARS, howitzers, artillery, drones, and lots of other good things. Germany is planning to sell 225 Volcano projectiles to Ukraine. The German government's also sending man-portable anti-tank weapons, first aid kits, trucks, and other things. Putin and Xi of China are both planning to attend the Group of 20 summit in November in Indonesia. Kharkiv, they are building bus stops to look like bomb shelters, because they are bomb shelters, but they're painting them with all sorts of cool art and things. Anyway, kind of cool. Sad, but kind of cool. And finally, Russian intelligence officers were so confident that they would seize the levers of power in Kyiv in only 3 days. Remember at the beginning of the war, that they spent the final days before the war arranging accommodations in the Ukrainian capital, as only the Russians could. All right, guys, I'm signing off. I am going over to the Discord. It's discord.aravosis.com. Be there or be square. Otherwise, I'm taking off for the weekend to protect my voice and starting again on Monday from Chicago. Same bat time, same bat channel, 6. But I'll put the notice up so you guys can see it. But thank you for joining me, guys. I'm going to get off here and see you